And those places that you have pluses, I would say check those too. Because it may not necessarily be exactly how it used to be. All right? So know for yourself. So when we say these negative sixes, and we saw that the negative sixes were kind of older folks, what do we typically call those negative sixes? Or how do we label them, those negative sixes? We call them bigots. What else do we typically call them? Racist. We call them racists. What else do we call them? We call them ignorant. What else?
Narrow-minded.
Narrow-minded. What else? Grandma. Right? So you get the second prize for the most honest thing I've heard in a long time. So we call them grandma. We might call them dad, mom, sister, brother. But they're this negative sixes. And when we give them those negative labels, do they say, thank you. I was wondering what was going on with me, and now I can be helpful. Is that what they say? No. What typically happens? They get defensive. The gentleman said, he said, well, I didn't hear anything racist. Nobody asked him about hearing anything racist, right? But he said, I didn't hear anything racist. These negative sixes, if you asked them if they were racist, what would their response be? No. And they would be right, because they are not card-carrying members of the club. As a matter of fact, I don't think there is a club called racist where you get a card and a pedigree and all that kind of stuff, right? But their behaviors obviously show some things. And so the negative sixes, we call them bigots and racists, and that's not helpful. Part of the problem with the negative sixes is they get disconnected from the human experience. This lady really can't get apple strudel? Shouldn't everybody have the right to get apple strudel? And I'm sure if they sat back and they thought about the fact that they denied this woman apple strudel, they would laugh at themselves. Right? Like, that's so goofy. Of course you can get apple strudel. The other thing that happens with these negative sixes is that they get disconnected from us. Please raise your hand if you consider yourself a good person. However you define that, raise your hand if you think that you are. Come on, Brian. You are a good person, Brianna. Right? So, good people. What typically happens is good people say. Now, everybody probably has an Uncle Jim. I have an Uncle Jim. And Uncle Jim, James, Uncle Jim is inappropriate. He tells way inappropriate jokes. He does not understand the concept of political correctness, right? And we don't really have to be concerned about where the kids are unless Uncle Jim is there, right? Nobody sits on Uncle Jim's lap. Let me just say that, right? So Uncle Jim is just like, anybody have an Uncle Jim type personality in their family somewhere? Okay, cool. So Uncle Jim is somebody who is ostracized by the family, and the family says, we will not invite Uncle Jim over. What's the problem with that? It's making the situation worse. Not confronting the issue. It's allowing it to get bigger. So I'm watching Animal Planet, and so they're following this pack of wolves, this coven of wolves, right? And so they're little puppy wolves, and they're playing, wrestling around. And then they show them as teen wolves, and they're practicing their hunting strategies and all this stuff. And then they show them as adult wolves. And as adult wolves, the alpha wolf is sending signals to the pack because they're going out for this hunt. And I can't remember if it was an elk or a moose, but they're going to hunt this big game animal. And so the alpha wolf is sending signals. You go there and play the back and all this kind of stuff. And then he says, on your mark, get set, go. So everybody strikes into their position. They get this elk. And the alpha wolf jumps up on the hind of the elk, and he's like, ah. What does the elk do? He kicked him. And what happened when the elk kicked the wolf? The rest of the pack attacked him. The elk broke the wolf's hip. What's now the destiny of the wolf? He's going to die. There are no EMTs, there are no hospitals, and he's definitely not a part of Health Partners, right? So the wolf's destiny is to now die. So what does the wolf decide for the betterment of the pack to do? He leaves. Anybody seen Buddy? No, Marley and Me? That's a toolbox. Tissue box movie, okay? So Marley keeps wandering off, and they can't figure out why, and then one day they do figure out why, right? So the wolf leaves the pack, and his new destiny is to die. To your point, Tony, what typically happens when good people like us cut off these negative sixes, we say, I can't have him talk around my children this way. His behavior is outrageous. I am too good of a person to be seen with Uncle Jim. And so we cut him off. And so, unlike the wolves, Uncle Jim is more social than the wolves are. And so what Uncle Jim does is once he's cut off from us, what does he do? He goes and finds a new pack of wolves that are just as sick as he is. And what do they start doing? They start breeding. So all the sickness and the disgusting stuff that good people can't put up with, Uncle Jim has found a network where he can fulfill all that nastiness and dirtiness, and they accept him for who he is. And so what I would say to you is that these negative sixes, these racists or these bigot folks, these folks that we call grandma or we call all these other names, that those are the people that our first inclination is wrong. Because your first inclination is to say, I can't be around them. But I would say that if they are to get better, who must they be next to? Good people. Now, I'm not saying that you have to take punishment, that you have to be disrespected, but what I am saying is that if you ever want these people to change, being closer to you, they have a higher likelihood of changing than if you don't give them an example. The negative sixes, how did they come this way? Are kids with swastikas, on their forehead and piercings and chains and black boots, they carry around, skinheads and all that kind of stuff. Were they born that way? No. As a teacher, if I see a kid like that, why do I get excited if I see a kid with a rebel flag T-shirt on and acting a certain way, or a kid with pants down to his ankles? Why do I get excited when I see that in young people? Because I know they weren't born that way. Just like the baby falling down. Right? They do this because they think that it works. And if I can show them a different way, guess what? Guess what my hope becomes? That I put the right bait on the right hook, so then I can just reel them in. All right? So let's talk about the 13. The 13 are courageous. I love these folks. They're easy to get along with. What is courage? If I was king of the forest. Courage. What's courage?
Not afraid to speak up.
Not afraid to speak up? Courage.
Doing the right thing.
Doing the right thing.
Even when you're frightened.
Even when you're frightened or scared. Okay? In America, we talk about courage like it's some drink you take, right? Like you get a can of courage, you open it up, yes, I'm ready to go. Liquid alcohol, sometimes people try to use that as, we used to call that liquid courage, because people will say stuff drunk that they wouldn't dare say to you, in person. Or electronic courage, where people will send you an email or Facebook post that they wouldn't dare say to your face, that kind of courage.